Hi, everyone, and welcome to DanaMojo's webinar. I'd like to introduce our speaker today. He's the founder and the CEO of DanaMojo, an alumni of the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and a computer science graduate from VJTI in Mumbai. Dhaval has an experience of over 20 years spanning technology, management consulting, and philanthropy advisory. Dhaval has worked with multinationals such as Citigroup and A.T. Kearney before he began his social sector journey with Give India. He has worked full-time in the social sector for nearly 15 years now and traversed the entire journey from volunteer to CEO of Give India, and now as the founder and CEO of DanaMojo. He led Give India as a CEO for 4 years from 2011 to 2014. During his association, the retail fundraising at Give India increased from 7 crores to 42 crores through more than 150,000 donors. Dhaval is an Aspen Fellow and a part of its India Leadership Initiative. He has written articles on philanthropy and social sector for multiple publications and has been quoted in industry articles across publications over the last 15 years. So over to you, Dhaval.
Thank you, Gopi. Thank you very much. And it's so fantastic to have all of you all out here. We are hoping for a few more people to join us very soon, but we will start off since we're already kind of delayed. Would be great to have as many of y'all who can switch on their cameras. I can say that it is very engaging from a speaker perspective to speak with people than to speak with black screens with only names. It would be lovely to see all of y'all. To see your reactions, and I think that gives me a lot of feedback into what I want to talk about today. So please, as many of y'all who can switch on your cameras, please, I will request you all to do so. This session is going to be in 2 parts. We are first going to talk about challenges, learnings, opportunities with respect to retail giving, and that is going to be the first approximately 45 to 50 minutes. We will then have a break out there for a Q&A for 10 minutes. And post that, we will talk about a retail fundraising program that we at DanaMojo are launching called Dana Vriddhi, and we'll give you a little bit more insight into what that program is about, how you can benefit from it, and what you would need to do to be a part of that program as well. And we do that for 20 minutes and then have another Q&A session to round off both the 2 parts of today's webinar. The first part as well as the part around Dana Vriddhi. However, in the meanwhile, if you all have any questions that you would like to ask, feel free to put them out in chat. I am looking at chat and I will respond to all of y'all. I will try to respond to as many questions as I can while I'm doing it, or I'll keep those in mind if I believe that they are relevant to some other parts of when we attack those topics, right? So please feel free, please allow the questions to come through, and let me just get everyone started and ask you a question out here to say, what is your expectation from today's webinar and today's session? If you can put it down in chat, I think it'll be a great beginning point for all of us to take this conversation forward. And in the process, I'll just share my screen so we get started. But yes, would love to hear from you guys and see. Right, I think y'all can see my screen. Okay, great. Learn how to begin our retail fundraising, how DanaMojo can help increase, learn about Dana Vriddhi. Great. How to increase donor base, long topic. I'm sure we'll cover some parts of it. Let me. Great. Yeah, how do you want to begin your journey? And I think that's what we will talk a bit about in Dana Vriddhi, how Dana Vriddhi can help you begin journey down this retail path. Great. Okay, you're finding CSR difficult. And how, so that's Shiva, that's very interesting. You're finding CSR difficult. What can you do? And I think retail fundraising is one of the ways to think differently about it, for sure. Yeah, Priya, very important point. How do you leverage retail while managing bandwidth? Undoubtedly the case, right? Yeah, Ramya, understanding the retail donor and expectation. I think this is very, very important. I think a lot of NGOs mistake the expectation that they are from a retail donor with other forms of donors. So I think that's great. Okay, yeah, how do you engage? Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Uh, okay, yeah. Individual fundraising is a challenge, Sam says, but we'll try to show you why that's not why that should not be a challenge and why you should do something about it. What are the skills required for scaling retail fundraising? Anusha, very good point. I think more than skills, it's about what are the strategies, what are the tactics, what are the ways in which to do it. Fantastic. So let's get started. I think we'll keep having this coming in and I will keep trying to respond to some of this as well. Yeah, okay, great. So as you all know, there are three forms of donations that take place. Four forms of donors. There is a government donor, there's an institutional or foundation donor, there's CSR, and there's individual. Individual, I further break up into retail and HNI. So what is the meaning of retail and HNI? Retail and HNI, let's kind of define HNI, and after that, everyone else is an individual, right? I think I have a simple definition of what an HNI is and I have a slightly more complex definition of it. So the simple definition of who an HNI is, let's say somebody who gives you anyone who gives you more than 1 lakh a year, right? So automatically everyone who gives you less than 1 lakh a year is your retail donor. But how do I make this differential? Can it be the same definition if you are a 10 lakh rupee NGO with a budget of 10 lakhs versus an NGO with a budget of 1 crore versus a NGO with a budget of 10 crores or even 100 crores, right? An HNI definition cannot be the same really. So here's a slightly more complex definition around this, is to say that this is an individual who you would need to give updates at least twice a year, and that is what is worth your time, right? And that's what you may think. So it could even be 50,000 for some of you, or it could be 5 lakhs for some of y'all who are much larger organizations and may feel that you can only spare the bandwidth at that amount, right? So I think that this is very broadly speaking what I would consider a definition of an HNI. I'd love to understand now from y'all, where do y'all get your money from? And I'm just going to launch a poll to understand that a little better. So I think you can see the poll. Would be great if you all can answer. Would love to see some answers coming up on this. Which is the group that you cater to, and from where do y'all fundraise, and where do most of the people out here fundraise from? So I'll just give you 30 seconds to respond to that. Okay, just the last 10 seconds. We have about 79 participants, but we have 59 responses. So I'm just going to wait for everyone to add in. These numbers look very interesting. These numbers actually, the numbers that I am seeing, and I will share them with you, actually make me wonder why you're all here actually. So let me share these numbers with you. As you can see, 61% of the participants out here are already doing individual retail. So am I preaching to the choir in that case? Right? It's fantastic to see so many of you are doing it, and another 48% are doing HNIs as well. Quite expectedly, more than half of you all are doing institutional and corporate, but I wonder what the other half are then doing, right? If you are not doing institutional and corporate, and I would have assumed that most of you all would be doing that. Nevertheless, I think the fact that you all are there despite doing individual, so many of you all doing individual retail, tells me that you're looking out for more. You believe in this medium, you believe in this channel, and you want to do more with this channel. So let's jump right into it and talk a little bit about why this channel is also a great channel to raise money from. So moving forward, so in the US, more than 70% of donations happens by individuals and bequests, right? So these are donations that are happening, more than 70% of them are happening via individuals and bequests. So if this is the case in the US, what do you think is the value in India of individual donations as a percentage of overall donation? And let's just take individual and CSR to begin with. If in the US it's 70%, 76% individual donations as a proportion of overall donations, what do you think it is in India? And I know many of you all may not be aware, so please feel free to guess. What do you think it is? Let's give it your best case, best guesstimate. Right? So Uma says 20%. We have somebody saying 10%. Okay. Let's see what others are saying. 3%, Shifali says. Okay. Sonal says more than 80%. Okay, so we have like a really wide range out here, you know, from 3% to 80% seems to be the range, with largely everyone coalescing around between 5 to 20%. Shiva says 40, Mayank says 30. Right. The question is, what is the share of individual giving in India's total giving if we are to consider only CSR and HNI? Sorry, CSR and individuals. That's the question. Okay, so I think roughly all of you are coming up at between 5 and 20%. Let me share with you the number that is there, which is 71% in 2020 and 2021. Right? In this financial year ending 2021, the share of individual giving was 71%. This is a bit of an aberration, and I will show that on my next slide, mainly because this was a COVID down year for corporates is what I will term it as. Bit of an aberration, but the idea that it is more than half is not an aberration. In fact, the 70% is not based on any survey. It is not based on any opinions. It is not based on anybody's analysis. It is actually based on tax deductions that have been claimed by individuals and corporate in that financial year. So this is based on real data that is put out by the government of India as part of its budget report. That report actually tells us that the share of individual donations in 21 was more than 70% of the overall donations. And yet, this was actually underestimated because individual donations will always be underestimated for multiple reasons. Let me put some of them down out here. Individual donation tax benefit is capped at 10% of income. So when a donor donates, the tax benefit that they can get out of it is capped at 10%. They cannot claim more than 10% of income as their donation. This is there in law. And a lot of HNIs who actually donate give far more than that. sorry. Many of these HNIs also give via shares and bequests. This is again not captured in this data. And last but not the least, many donors may have opted for the new tax regime and thus will not claim these donations. Many donors may not claim the donation itself because it's a small amount of money, especially retail donors giving 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 rupees. This is not a very big amount for them to claim, and they may leave it, they may forget about it, or they may not have the necessary documentation around it, right? So we must understand that this data of individual donation thus is actually heavily under, I would say it is underestimated as a result of it. So let's look at what the share of individual giving has been. And if I look at this individual giving trend, it has been growing. Like I told you, last year was an aberration. And this aberration is mainly because corporate giving drastically fell. It was 25,000 crores in 1920, largely because of giving towards COVID. And because of that, in the next year, corporate giving has dramatically fallen to about 8,300 crores. And because of that, it feels as if the share of individual is high at 71. But if you look across the years also, it has been close to 50%. And I will argue it is actually far more than 50% because individuals don't claim tax benefit for all the reasons we mentioned earlier, right? So I think that that is very important to understand that all of this is part of these donations. And Ramno, you are asking whether individuals like Premji and Shivnada, their donations would come into this, and they don't. Because most of them, they all donate via bequest of shares. They will their shares to the foundation, and there is no tax benefit on that. And even if it is, it's limited to 10% of income. Whereas what they have got is wealth. It's not really income. So they don't really get benefit of this tax because they are not giving income. So I think it's very important to see that this, you've seen corporate giving peaked in 1920 because of COVID at 25,000 and then dropped the next year. It almost kind of came back to its average level, 25,000 plus 8,000, 33, average of 16,500 crores a year. That's roughly the average from 15,000 crores in 1890. So I think that is very important to look at. And I meant 2019-20. When I say 1920, it's the financial year 2019-20. That's the way it's normally said. Can I please request everyone to switch off their, to keep themselves on mute? Otherwise, I'm going to ask the co-host to please mute everyone. Thank you. So if you see, if you look at the growth of individual donations, it has grown from 6,300 crores in 16-17 to 20,000 crores in 2021, right? Over these 5 years, it has roughly grown more than 3 times. In fact, over the 5 years that we've seen this growth happen, in 3 of the 5 years, growth has actually been faster. Growth has actually been faster than corporate giving. So if you look at in different years, the growth rate is faster than corporate giving. Now, this brings me to talk about saying, so why are we talking about individual giving? Are we saying that that's what we should do and we should abandon everything else? No, not for a moment. What we want to talk about, and that's where I feel that a lot of you are already doing individual. So let's reinforce it. Let's reinforcing why you should continue doing individual donations is from a diversification point of view. It's important to diversify your sources of funding. And if you do not have individual donations in your basket, you are really not diversified, because government, institutional foundations, and CSR in characteristics are very similar. Just because you have donations coming in from government, institution, foundations, or CSR, and you feel that you have 3 out of, let's say, 5 sources of funding covered, you are diversified. No, but you're wrong. You are not diversified. Because when money comes from these 3 sources, it is equivalent to investing in the stock market in only IT stocks of TCS, Infosys, and Wipro. That is not real diversification, right? So let us understand what is the difference in these mechanisms. And the first question is, how do you reach these different segments? So let's break that down and talk about why do each of these segments give money? So government gives to solve a problem. Institution, foundations give to solve a problem. CSR is giving because it has to meet a legal requirement, right? CSR is giving out of social responsibility also. CSR is giving for brand building also. Individuals, HNIs on the other hand, many reasons to give. Some of them I have captured out here talking about saying they want to give back to society. There are personal reasons. My mother died of cancer. I want to give for cancer. You know, somebody in my family had TB, so I would want to give for TB. My parents in old age are suffering. I want to give for old age. Many reasons that people will give, right? Some of them also think of it as their duty to give back. And the other is obviously guilt conscience. You know, if I will give, then my sins will be forgiven, kind of thing, right? So how do they decide? How do these segments decide where to give the money? For government, it is about matching a scheme or a policy, right? If they have a scheme or policy in an area that you are working in, then you are likely to get funds. If they don't, then you are not going to get funds. Institution and foundations, very simply, if you're solving the same problem that they are looking to solve, right, then they're going to give you funds. On the other hand, CSR and corporate, a lot more difficult. You need a connect, especially in smaller organizations. You need a connect with the CEO. You need a focus area match. You need with larger CSR, they need to be looking at organizations in the same cause area, focus geographical area that you're working in. With smaller companies, it's more about you knowing somebody in the company, you knowing the CEO, you knowing the promoters. Without that, you're not going to get through. With HNIs also, a referral, a connect is very important. But then it also must match their cause area. So first is the connect, which builds trust, and the second is the cause area. Retail giving, on the other hand, is a lot more impulsive. If they know somebody who's even given to you, and that person says that this is a good organization to give to, they will give. If they know somebody within your organization, obviously there is more likelihood of giving. Right? So it is basic trust and connect with somebody or something in your organization. So how do you reach them? Right? With government, it's a cold call. Right? As long as you have this, solving the same problem, you can reach out to them. Similarly with institutions, foundations. CSR, like I said, you need to connect with the CEO. So it has to be a referral program. Similarly with individual HNIs. HNIs will never ever give unless they have been referred to you by one of their peers, by one of their colleagues. They have to either know you directly or they have to know you via somebody else. So I often tell people that if you do not have that base, then you should not go after this segment. Don't worry about it, right? Maybe you'll get your first HNI someday by providence, and then you can leverage that HNI to help, connect into that person's network. But till that time, don't pursue that source. A lot of other ways to do it. But retail is somewhere which is the easiest because it's everybody that is around us, everybody that we know. So it can really be anybody, right? It doesn't have to be, you don't have to worry about whether you know people or not. There are literally people all around you. Now, how fast do they give? So let's understand the decision-making process. What's the speed of giving? Who makes the decision in each of these sources? In government, it's government officers, obviously. Institution foundations have committees. Corporates have CSR committees. But with individual and HNIs, it's the family that decides. Or it's the individual that decides the giving, right? With HNIs, it's largely the family that will decide. The husband, wife, children will be part of that decision-making process. But in retail, it's really that individual who's making a choice and who's making a decision to give. And because with individuals, it's their own money, versus in all other cases, it's not their own money, the speed of decision-making is the fastest. Because when it's not your own money, you have to be a lot more careful in giving that money. You have to be a lot more thoughtful. You have to be a lot more rational. You have to show a lot more information when you give the money, right? You have to explain your decisions. While an individual who's giving their own money doesn't have to do that. So the speed of decision-making is much faster, right, with individuals. And the last thing is how long will they give for? So let's understand what's the process of giving. With government, institutional foundations, and it's a very rational decision-making process, like I explained. Because it's not their own money, they are trustees of someone else's money, and they have to give that money. They have to follow a process, which is a very rational process. While with individual HNIs and retail, it's a more emotional process. Even with HNI, it begins as an emotional process and then will become a rational process. So the decision to give is emotional, where to give, what to give, how much to give, all of that starts forming rational elements. But with retail, it's purely emotional and impulsive, right? I mean, at least for 90% of the people, it's an emotional, impulsive decision. What's the time period of this giving? The time period for government, as you well know, is 1 year. They'll give you for a year-long project. Institutions, foundations are probably the ones that give you for the most amount of time. I mean, some of them will sign 5 to 7 year agreements with you with, however, annual renewals. The same with CSR, right? CSR, however, may sign 3 to 5 year agreements, but they will ask for renewal every year, and every year a situation may change because CSR donations are based on what percentage of profit they've come up with. So if any of them are not having a large profit in a particular year, their CSR spending could decrease and you could be one of the affected NGOs. If the profits increase, maybe you get more, or maybe they decide to add one more NGO to their bucket, right? You don't know. So pretty much on tenterhooks every time you undergo renewals. I'm sure a lot of you all have experienced it, and please feel free to share your experiences even for others in this group in terms of what you have experienced in these different segments. But individuals, once they like an organization, they can give to you for life. They can keep giving to you year after year. They will keep wanting to give to you year after year. And they are multi-generational because their children will give to you as well, especially if children are living outside India. Many of the times when we give money, we give to the same places that our parents have given for. And especially if you're outside India, you do not know better and you would probably follow your parents' footsteps. So this is very important to understand that an individual donor can be a lifetime giver, can be a multi-generational giver. They're not really time-bound to a specific aspect of it, right? So this is very, very important. I think it's great to see some of the different, experiences coming up. While Parul says CSR are best donors, we have Rumno saying that compliances are very difficult and it's difficult to kind of try, working with CSR. So I think it's important to understand that this is not about abandoning all other sources, right? This is not about saying you don't do it, but this is about having a conscious, clear, growth-oriented strategy for individual donors as well, and making it a significant pie of what you are doing. So while 60% of you all have said that you are doing it, I'd love to also understand how much of your donations is via individual giving, and we'll just do a poll on that in a moment. So what is the amount of giving that is happening with each of these sources? So obviously with government, it's high, foundations, it's high. CSR probably lower than government or foundation, medium. HNI is very similar to CSR in terms of the size. Retail by definition obviously is low per donor, but we also have a vast number of donors, right? We have a vast number of donors that we can reach out to. We are not dependent on knowing a CEO. We are not dependent on knowing senior management. We're not dependent on knowing an HNI, and we can essentially reach out to everybody and everyone around us. So I think that is very important to think about and understand that because of this in our minds, the individual donor is a very different kind of donor. And if you as an organization are not doing it, this is for the remaining 40% of organizations which are not doing individual donations, is to please start doing it, right? Do it as one more segment compared to what you have been already doing. So let me ask you now that you've seen all this, you've seen individual donors contribute 50% of overall donations. What is your share of individual donations in your for your organizations? I'm just launching a poll. Again, half a minute. If you all can give us answers on what share of your donations are coming from individual donors. So while many of you all are doing it, is it substantial? Is it a significant part of your donations? Let's understand that. And if you don't know how much it is, then I think don't you think you should know how much of your donations are coming from individuals? Good exercise to do now, post this, if you don't know that. Great to hear, Vasu, that more than 100% of your donations were, I mean, close to 100% of your donations were actually individual donors. And fantastic. Okay, let me just give the last 10 seconds for remaining people to respond. We have 55 respondents out here out of the 80 odd participants on this call. So I'll just give those remaining participants another 10 seconds. If you can please share your responses. Okay, I'm ending the poll now, and I'll share the results with you, and we can all look at them together and understand what they say. I think first of all, they're saying that more than 25% of y'all raise more than 50% via retail. That's fantastic as an audience group to see that so many of y'all are channeling such a wide number of donations via retail. But there is another, what, 41, close to 60% of y'all who raise less than 25% via retail. Now, please understand this. 50% of all donations which are happening by individuals. If you are not even having 25% of your budgets which are happening by individual retail, then I think you have a huge opportunity as well. Not to say the others don't. The others also have a great opportunity in increasing the donations that they are getting from retail. But definitely the ones who've not tapped into it, I think that there is a significant opportunity for you out here to look at this as a source of funding. So let's move on and we'll talk about what are the other benefits that are there for retail donors. So what are the other reasons why you should raise money? We've seen that it's a good amount of donations that happen by individual donors. We've seen that individual fundraising provides a different source as well. What are some of the other reasons that we could look at? So diversify, right? The obvious one, we've already spoken about it. Retail donors help you to diversify your NGOs and you're not dependent on one stable source of funding. Second is stability. Retail donations are more stable in some sense. When I say more stable, I mean that it is possible that if you lose some of your retail donors, let's say you have 100 donors, you lost 20 donors, it's equally easy to get back 20 donors as well. So it's not difficult to maintain stability in funding with the retail donor base. On the other hand, if you think about your corporate donors, right, and you have, say, 5 corporate donors, and you lose one of them in a particular year, is it equally easy to bring one back? Can you be sure that you can do it? I think that's the biggest difference with respect to retail donors. Okay? Sonal, and you made a very interesting point, saying getting new retail donors has been a challenge for us. And I think that we often try to only look at new donors. We are never trying to say, can the existing donor give more? And that's the point I want to actually address in this slide itself, when we talk about the capacity of individuals to give. CSR, by definition, is restricted to 2% of their profits. They will now not give more than 2. Earlier, you had many Tata companies that used to give more than 2%. Today, organizations will limit themselves to 2% because their board, their shareholders will ask them, why are we giving more? And they won't have a good answer to that. On the other hand, individuals do not have such limits. In fact, most individuals are giving less than 0.1% of their income, right? Less than 0.1%. I can bet you that even if that same individual decides to give double, triple, 5 times, or even 10 times of what they're today giving, they will not feel a pinch in their pocket or have to change their lifestyle. Most of them will be able to give much more. So I would look at, Sonal, I would say that think of your donors and say, what can you do with your donors? A, to make sure that, first of all, they give every year, right? You have to have high retention rate. Second, how do you get them to give more? Are you engaging your donors? Are you working with them? Are you providing them opportunities? Are you suggesting opportunities to them in which they can give more? Are you creating opportunities? I think that is very, very important. A great point, Ramya. I think that's a very interesting, mechanism that you mentioned out there. But my basic point is, I don't think we must keep trying to run after new donors. There's a lot that can be done with existing donors itself, and we must try to do more with existing donors. Right? The fourth point is fundraise. Unlike any other kind of donor, the individual donor is the one who will fundraise for you. And that's the point Ramya has made, that they will reach out to friends, they will refer you, they will talk to you with others. No other segment of donors is going to make a reference for you. No other segment of donors is going to actually raise money for you. So I think that that is very, very important to understand, that you're building this network which you can get. So when you talk about new donors, this is the way to build new donors. Use existing donors to reach out and help you build new donors. Once you've got those new donors, however, your work begins then. It's about engaging them. It's about making them donors to the cause of the organization. And last but not the least, engagement. I think you are here. I mean, all of you all have started organizations to create change. All of you all have started organizations to have, to develop society. And if you can get other elements of society, other people in society to be part of your mission, to be part of that change, then that's really what you want, because you want them to feel as deeply about what you are doing as you feel about it, right? And that is the opportunity that you get with individual donors. You get the opportunity of getting things which you probably sometimes cannot get with money. For example, I can give an example of an organization in Bombay that was looking for help in setting up creches at building sites, which is kind of compulsory. And they were not able to move it with the donors or with the builders. But they had a donor who knew the municipal commissioner of Bombay, and the municipal commissioner of Bombay stepped in and made this thing happen. And this is required by law, but it was not happening. So it was really about just enforcing the law. So this is what you can make happen in terms of furthering your cause, even beyond money, when you have support from individuals and when you have truly engaged the individuals really well. So obviously funds is important, but I think there are a lot of non-fund aspects of getting money from donors that is equally important. So we've seen that there's a lot of money in individual. We've seen it's a diversified source. We've seen all the other benefits, and further want to make these points about the fact that people do want to give. The fact that people are looking at opportunities, and this is, maybe an older survey, but it really makes the point that donors in India do want to give for socially conscious organizations, companies, and that's the highest number across all developed countries, right? Various reports have said this. Indians are least cynical and most enthusiastic about giving. 84% of Indians are already giving at least once a year, according to the India Giving Report. And individual donations have seen a strong growth, 21% year on year over the last 5 years. We've seen all these numbers, right? So we've seen all of this, and it really is something that that you all have looked at. However, I think this last point makes it the most valid. Most Indian nonprofits look to everyday giving. Everyday giving is another term for retail giving, only when other streams are inaccessible. And we've seen the evidence of this during COVID. Right? We've seen the evidence of this during COVID, where people have only reached out because other sources have dried up. So, and the acronym for funds that you're asking: F for fundraise, U for unlimited, N for engage, D for diversify, and S for stability. Right? That's how we put it. So a lot of people have asked me that what is the compliance requirement for individual donors, and is it something different? And is it some different compliance for Indian and foreign donors? And that's not the case. It's really the same thing. There's also a general feeling that you only need to collect details of a donor if a donor wants a tax receipt, but that's not the case. For all donors, whether it's an individual, whether it's a corporate or whosoever, the minimum that you need to collect is name, address, and nationality. And you must collect nationality, or you must take acceptance from them that they are an Indian citizen, even if you don't have FCRA. If you have FCRA, obviously you need to collect the nationality of the donor. But name, address, nationality is the minimum requirement that is there. And then PAN card, in case the donor wants a tax receipt, then you need PAN card. Or if the donation is more than 50,000. So if the donation is more than 50,000, then a PAN card, PAN number is compulsory. Okay? So what happens if you don't have these details? Is that a problem? Not really. The government, by a law, allows you to collect some amount of your donations as anonymous donations. This anonymous donation is a donation where you don't have name and address, right? And you can collect this donation up to a limit of 1 lakh rupees or 5% of your total income, whichever is higher. 1 lakh or 5% of your total income, whichever is higher. So if your total budget of your organization is 1 crore, you will yet get 5 lakhs of that, as you can collect 5 lakhs as anonymous donation without name, without address. So where is this useful now? Right? Every one of you all have used UPI. UPI has become synonymous to making payments everywhere in India today, right? QR codes is the way we normally make payments, whether it's in a high-end supermarket or it's on the roadside, on the road itself, the fruit guy on the road. So this is something that when you take donations via QR code, those donations will automatically come as anonymous donations because you can't capture address. Now, when that happens, you do not need to worry. You can take this donation because the law allows you to do it. Yes, Sonal, this is mentioned in the IT Act. This is section 115 BBC of the IT Act, right? Which talks about the fact that you can take donations from individual donors. Okay. And there is a limit, and beyond the limit, also you can collect. The only difference is you'll have to pay tax on that at the rate of 30%. So please don't allow anyone to tell you that you can't collect anonymous donation or this is not allowed in law. This is legally allowed. It is there as a provision of the law. Ketki, you can read the points on the slide. I think they answer your question. So let's move ahead. So what did we see during COVID happen, right? COVID led to individual giving increasing by 43%. There's a report which says during COVID, individual giving increased by 43%. Why did that happen? Lockdowns enforced social distancing on all of us, right? And social distancing gave rise to more individuals giving and more online giving happening as well. A lot of that online giving also happened. I mean, obviously a lot of individual giving happened because NGOs such as yourself also reached out a lot more. You reached out more and you got more money. And we've seen this with some of our NGOs, that during COVID, they reached out more, they raised more money, and they recognized that, okay, there are donors who are giving to them, who can give to them. And they've continued that engagement post-COVID. And I will show you one example of a case study from one of our NGOs. They've continued that engagement post-COVID and they've maintained that level of donation. And there have been some of these organizations. And we've also seen organizations, unfortunately, most of them, who felt that this was a one-time thing, the donations happened because of COVID, didn't bother to engage these new donors or existing donors, and definitely didn't ask them again. And as a result of which, they did not get money again. But this is the change that's happening in India, is online giving is increasing. Whether we look at giving through digital wallets increasing from 28 to 41%, or from credit cards where it's increased from 33 to 40%. So on all these donations, so we are seeing online giving has increased, individual giving has increased, right? And that's the opportunity that we are here to talk about today with all of you. So let me ask, I have a poll for you again. to understand why is it that you don't raise money from individual donors. Let me just 1 minute. Yeah. So if you are not raising donations from individual donors, or you are not following this as a, just 1 second. Let me just launch this poll. Would love to understand why you do not do retail fundraising actively. If you do not do retail fundraising actively, can you say why you do not do it actively? Okay, another 10 seconds for all of you all to respond. We have only half the participants responding. Would love to see more people responding out here. Okay, last 10 seconds. Okay. So let's understand why you do not raise money using retail fundraising. So most of you all are saying you all don't know how to. And that's interesting. I think that's what our Dana Vriddhi program is about. And we're going to give a short overview of that out here. And equally, many of you all are saying it's high cost, high effort, low ROI. So we'll try to address that as well, on why you think it's high cost, high effort, low ROI, and why we don't think that's the case. I think the last point about don't have donors to ask is I don't think we're looking at everybody as a donor. We're not looking at people all around us as donors. We want people who are already giving money and we want them to give money to us. I don't think that's the way we need to look at it. We should say that everybody around us is a donor. Have we gone and asked everyone that we know? So let's try breaking some of these myths. So high cost, high effort, right? A lot of you all have talked about high cost, high effort, uh, low ROI as well. And I think one of the reasons, would love to hear from people out here on chat on why you think so as well. But one of the reasons I have found in my experience of why people think about this is because they view a donation coming by an individual in terms of servicing requirements as very similar to what they would have to do via CSR, via institutions. So the kind of feedback they give to CSR, the kind of feedback updates they give to corporates, the kind of support that they have to give them, they view it as very similar. But that's not the case. That's absolutely not the case. And just to give a small indication of what this means, back when I was at Give India, we had 150,000 donors, right? And for these 150,000 donors, we had only one person who was providing donor support, that too for only half the time in the day, only for 4 hours in the day. That was her allocation for providing donor support. So if at such a high level of donations, we had such a small need of donor support, that tells you that individual donors, first of all, don't require that much support. They require basic levels of support. Have I got my ATG? Have you sent it on time? You know, that's the level of support that they require, and you will not spend a lot of effort providing that support. Most importantly, unlike CSR and institutional, which has to be done by founders of the organization, in case of individual retail, you can do it with team members. In fact, you can have a bunch of fresh graduates who can run this for you. They will definitely need mentorship. They will definitely need guidance. They will need coaching, but they can actually run it for you. You don't need to be the face. On the other hand, you all well know that if it comes to CSR or any institutional donor, the founder needs to go and stand out there. Right? The founder is at the end of the day responsible for everything. However, and yes, Sonal, you're very right. The person had tech support. You have to have a system, but the system does not need to be very complicated. You need to have a basic system which allows you to send ATG to your donors very easily. You need to have a basic system which allows you to look at the donations of your donors very easily. You do not need a more complex system than that. But yes, you need a system. You need something, right, to manage retail donors. You cannot just manage it over an Excel sheet or pieces of paper. So I think that is very, very important is that with this limited information itself, you can actually manage donors, and it is not a high cost, high effort. One, it's a technology solution you should have. Second, it's not the same as servicing a CSR donor or an institutional donor. I think that is very important to understand. The next is, yes, it is small amounts of money, but multiply it by the number of people that can give to you, right? We've talked about that. Multiply it by the number of people that can give to you, and it can become a large amount of money. One other myth of individual donations that I would like to address is one of unrestricted funding. A lot of organizations want to do retail because it is unrestricted funding. But if you tell a donor that you give me money, I will use it whichever way I want, people are not going to come to you. They are not going to want to donate to you. I think it is very important to make a differentiation between unrestricted funding and flexible funding. Flexible funding is yet going towards the program. When you are asking money from a individual donor, please note it is no different than asking from a corporate donor. Maybe out there you're asking to educate 100 children. Here you're asking for one child. That's the only difference. But the money going towards the child is equally important for an individual donor. And unless we change that thinking, unless we switch on that thinking that donations that come even by individuals need to also go to programs, they're not just meant for our organization, but they can be put on programs as required. I think when we make that mindset shift, we will understand, and our communication will move in such a direction that more and more donors will want to give to us, because you as an organization will be a different kind of organization. You, an organization, will be putting in money where you have promised to the donor. And I think that's a basic promise that every donor requires. So I think that is very, very important to understand, and to make this differentiation between unrestricted funding should not be the reason why you look at individual donors. Flexible funding can be the reason why you look at it. So if I have to give a broad segment of this and talk about this a little bit, so what are the different strategies that you could adopt? Depends on where you are today in the spectrum, and we've created a spectrum of start, grow, scale. So under start, which is where we believe also it's the least amount of investment and the basic building blocks that you need to put into place, you need to have a way of collecting online donations on your website. You need to have a way of communicating with your donors, engaging your donors, and the simplest, easiest, most cost-effective manner is to use email marketing. You may also use crowdfunding as a way to engage with your donors. The second is a grow phase, slightly more investment, slightly more technology-oriented, are things that you can do, which is WhatsApp marketing, social media marketing, advertising, or events as well. And the last part, which is scale, are the areas which require the maximum amount of effort and investment, which is telecalling, direct marketing, face-to-face. Traditionally, this is how organizations have grown, and this is how organizations have scaled. But we believe there are other models possible, which we will talk about in brief out here today. We will talk about these other models, and we will talk about why one can look at donating, scaling your programs, even without these more expensive modes of donations. So like I promised, there's this organization which started out with us about 6-7 years ago. And before they started out with us, they were getting about 18 lakhs of donations in a month, in a year, sorry. And today they have reached a scale of more than a crore. At the peak of COVID, they raised 1.1 crores, which is basically a growth of 6 times in 6 years. And like you can see, they've managed to maintain that rate. They definitely increased their donations in the COVID year, as you can see in 2020-21, but then managed to maintain that because they have consistently engaged and asked these donors for money. So if you look at it year on year, their donations have become that. They started using the DanaMojo platform. I won't say we made it happen, but I think we gave them the stability. We gave them the system. We gave them the features that they required to have a stable system, which allowed them to go out and ask for donations. And I think that is very, very important if you look at retail donations. So we talked about some elements of scaling, and I'm going to address this in a bit of brief since I think we're running out of time on this section. So what are these ways in which you could raise more money and scale your retail fundraising? You could have employees raising money for you. Your employees raising money through their networks. Your employees are your best brand ambassadors. Your employees understand your programs the most. Can they also help you in raising money? I think it would be a fantastic activity for them to do, to understand how difficult it is to raise money, to understand the pain that your fundraising teams go through, and to engage in an amazing bonding exercise for all of you all. Volunteers are another way. If you are an organization which has volunteers or is a volunteer-driven organization, volunteers want to do more. Why don't you get them to raise money? Some organizations today have this as part of their annual calendar where every year their volunteers raise money. Thirdly is corporates. A lot of y'all have CSR partnerships. Can you all have corporates, volunteers who give you money, corporate volunteers who raise money for you? Can you create a program which keeps allowing these employees to come to your premises, to engage with you, to volunteer with you? What kind of programs can you create for that? For the champion fundraisers, these are typically your supporters who've been with you for a long period of time. These are people who have worked with you. These are people who want to do more, have been associated you for a long time. Have you ever asked them to raise money for you? Right? Alumni and beneficiaries, another fantastic model that we've seen is if you are working in areas where you're giving scholarships to children, have you reached out to them once they've got their jobs, asking them to give back? You will be surprised by the response that this gets. And the last but not the least are areas which have direct donor benefit. Let me quickly explain this and say, what do I mean by this? So a lot of times organizations come to me working on governance, working on human rights, working in media, and say, we don't work on the grassroots with children, education, and how do we raise money, right? And I tell them that you are actually best placed because you are giving me a benefit. You are giving the donor a direct, tangible benefit through your work that you are doing, and we will become a country which is more cares about governance, or a cities which get better governed or more democratic. And as a result of it, supporting you is actually supporting the country. So that's the way you need to, chart your narrative. You need to create your narrative. At the end of the day, a lot of this is about what narrative we are all able to create. So very quickly, let me just walk through a little bit more in detail and more from perspective of some of the organizations that have done this. Right. So we talked about employee giving and all the benefits of employee giving. Right. I mean, it's covered many of this, but I think it's a great team bonding activity. Some of the organizations that have done it and have enjoyed the process, they continue doing it. I think great examples to learn from. And this is applicable to all, right? All of y'all have employees. Everybody can do it. And nothing is stopping you from doing it. The volunteer scaling model. The volunteer scaling model more applicable to NGOs which actually run a volunteer organization based out volunteers or have some volunteers coming in. Bhumi, you and I, Team Everest are some of the organizations which have done a fantastic job getting their volunteers to raise money for them, right? And they've made it a fun event. They've created competitions by city, by state. Requires a push, requires things to get started. But if you can create a calendar, you can make it an annual event within your organization, then nothing like it. Similarly with corporate volunteering, right? Engaging corporate volunteers to do something for you. Develop a corporate tour of your facilities. Get your corporate employees to visit you. Develop a volunteering day. Get them to come to your centers, preferably on Saturdays because that's when they're off, and make subtle asks through the tool. Tell them about what they can donate for, put up imagery, put up collateral around. At the end, have a debriefing. Help them, ask them what they've gained out of it, what more they can do, right? And pitch out there and raise donations. I think this is a uh, very possible medium for a lot of y'all, especially those of y'all who have CSR partnerships, strong CSR partnerships. Champion fundraisers, as I mentioned, people who've been with you for a while and would like to do more. Many such organizations, Tata Mumbai Marathon is a prime example of where NGOs use their champion, use this event to raise money. A lot of champion volunteers as well. Typically, if you have corporate senior management teams, then that would help. Alumni beneficiaries, I think this is the one that works best. So you've had Foundation for Excellence, for example, which has seen over the last 10 years, 8 times growth in donors and 20 times growth in donations, right? That is the scale at which they have grown by going back to their alumni and raising money for them. And it's not about just these alumni donating to them. Sometimes these alumni have even got the CSR of their organizations where they have joined to donate money to them. Right. So again, applicable maybe to organizations which give out scholarships or have some form of alumni, have children, or work on livelihoods, I think could use this kind of model to grow. And the last, as I mentioned, is direct donor benefit. What kind of organizations could come into this? There could be advocacy organizations, there could be spiritual organizations, there could be media organizations, any organization that is working towards helping everyday people, right, has a fantastic opportunity to tap into those people and ask them for money, right? As an example, I'll take the example of Internet Freedom Foundation, which I really love how they raise money. They talk about the fact that they are here to protect your digital rights. And as digital rights affect each and every one in this country, they ask each and every one for donations. Every mention or whatever they do ends with a requirement of a donation, right? And I think that is very helpful. Yes, Priyasha, that's a fantastic point. I think fundraising from high school, college students is another opportunity which is definitely there. So I think this direct donor benefit is a great tool if you are an organization which is working in areas which are more advocacy related, which are more governance related, because you have a direct impact on people who donate to you. And if you can craft that narrative, if you can craft that story well enough, then you would really benefit from it. Okay. So this is just an example of how Internet Freedom Foundation has created plans with multiple options, how they raise money. With this, I'll leave this on the screen for you to have a look at, but we are at the end of the first session. We've run a bit over, but happy to take any questions that are there. You can put up your hands and we can call out people and to ask questions. Nobody has any question? Anything that you'd like to share? Any comment? Yes, Vasmati, please go ahead.
Yeah, not a question, but since somebody said about retail fundraising being expensive and too time intensive and all that, disclaimer, I don't have any benefits from DanaMojo, but ever since I got DanaMojo, ATG receipts, all that have been so easy to handle. We didn't have to do that job. The last year for the 10BE, 10BD, 10BE, we had to send out receipts to those who need it. This year, all that got automated. So one by one, so many things have got easier. And for us, our main, as I had put earlier, the main source is individuals, those who do our e-learning programs. So they are our direct beneficiaries. So for them also, it's easy to donate, get whatever, and whether they want it or not, they get their ATG receipts, everything. So I found this to be really easy to do. And the focus is on getting donors, that's all. But the rest of it is Just that simple. I just wanted to share this.
Thank you, Asmati. Hitesh, do you have a question? You can unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, in fact, sometimes what happens that we want to raise funds which are like a result of a particular program or project that we are running. For example, currently we are going to organize an international event for advances of a thermal solar. So we have given a registration through a DanaMojo, but we sometimes what happens that we find difficult to when individual donors, particularly students, they ask for a concession. And since it is we have to open a one project which a particular rate of registration, then if the discount is asked, so that provision cannot be made. So how to pitch for that in that case? This is
So Hitesh,
just
I think this is a very, very specific question to your situation. Maybe you can drop an email to us and we can, probably give you some ideas. But I think this is a very, very specific question. I think we would like to get more questions which would resonate with a larger audience.
I think Ramya had a question.
Yes, I just wanted to understand in your experience, do NGOs have enough donor management or donor relationship team? I know they have a fundraising team. I have advocated this to some of the organizations I work with because I feel they don't give enough importance to donor relationship and management. Just wanted to know your view and your experience on that.
Yes, I would. I mean, I think, Ramya, I would partially agree with you. I would probably go on to add that they don't have even a fundraising team. And honestly, donor management is really a part of the fundraising function. So if at all donor management has to be done, it has to be done by the fundraising team itself. But I'd like to give an example of an organization that I'm aware of, which has no fundraising team, but they have donor management very well handled. They don't have a team, they don't have a person. It is handled between the finance person, the accounts people out there, and they ensure that any donor query is addressed, I think like within the next 30 minutes, if not maximum 2 hours. And they are absolutely superlative on the donor support piece. They don't do any outreach. They don't do any fundraising per se actively, but they're so good on donor support and donor care that I think that a lot of donors just love that about them and keep giving money to them. So I think it is very, very important per se to actually have donor management before even having fundraising. Because if you provide good support to your donors, I think automatically you will get more donors because those donors will refer other donors to you as well.
Ketki, please go ahead.
Yeah, I actually just didn't really have a specific question. I was going to share that, using your employees for fundraising was a point that was made earlier. And we do have an annual event on our foundation day on the 1st of May, when we ask every single staff member to pitch in with fundraising and raise, even if it's 100 rupees or 200 rupees from friends, family, neighbors, and people they know, and so on. And that has been working well for us because it's, what you suggest, everybody gets a sense of ownership and understands and all that. It works well. But sustaining, we do have the DanaMojo portal on our website and all that, but we are not, I don't know what it is. We're so sort of thinly stretched across so many things that we're not able to give the kind of time that is needed for donor management, as you said. And specifically finding a person to do the individual fundraising. Somewhere something is, maybe the systems or the way we work, we need a little more hand holding and mentoring on that. We're trying everything, but it works up to a point, and then I think we're not able to sustain it. That's where we are struggling.
Right, right. Thanks for sharing that, Ketki. I think, yes, it is important to have those people, to have somebody doing it. But like I said, I think the beauty about individual fundraising is it does not require the founder to lead. It is something that can be done by a team member. It can be done by others. If only you would allow them to kind of take that initiative and go ahead. So I think that is something which is definitely possible.
I was just curious to know if any other organization uses, say, interns who come to their organization to help with fundraising. Is that a task that one can give them to do? Has it been tried and tested? We get a lot of interns who come to visit and spend time with us, and it's a lot of work for us to manage their time with us. Just curious to know if others are doing this.
Yeah, KK, I would like to share about this. It's like you said, interns need a lot of hand holding. We need to guide them a lot. Yes, that's true. And they come for a shorter period. So it becomes next to impossible because they don't understand the work completely. So talking to a third person when you don't understand the work properly might create an opposite result than getting a donor. So it is definitely challenging working with interns and freshers. Yeah. It has to be someone who is from within the organization, who knows the organization in and out, is what I've
I would probably say that if it is interns are best suited for roles which have a process and which have to be done in a very specific, clear cut way. Or
yeah,
as a
like
specific,
sending out emails
or if it's a specific skill set that you have, like say graphics designing. But for everything else, I think you should have a process. If you have a very, very strong process and you have clearly you want them to do something which you know will work and which you have experimented with, then you could use interns. If you're expecting interns to figure their way out, to find out how to fundraise, and you're outsourcing their work to them because you find it very difficult, then they can't make it easier for you. That I am 100% sure of. Okay. Let's take one last question before we move on. Yes, Romno, please go ahead. You're on mute, Romno. Can you unmute yourself and ask?
Yeah. Okay, so see, actually, our organization is working in the field of disability. So, finally, we are trying to get them to get into some livelihood space, but obviously, it's very difficult for them to give it back because we are working for extremely economically challenged people. So we have so far been supported by large corporates and donors, but as I said, that the stretch for us, like there are just 3 of us who are actively engaged from the trust and the board, it's so high that for us to focus onto the retail fundraising has not been really possible. We have a DanaMojo in our website, but so far we have not had any retail donation over there. Our retail donations overall is less than 1%. And though we work with the funders, and since we are not taking the fees from the students, so we can't get the funders to pay us any money for a donation team. So we don't have any donation team because there is salary involved over there. So, but we would very much like to get this because it gives us a flexibility, because we are very much bound by the compliances in the CSR as well as foundation. Foundation, not so much, but the CSR compliances are extremely tedious for all of us, and we are really running helter-skelter. But we do not know how to start over there. because only
So I
three.
think, Rumno, then in that case, I think you give me the perfect segue into talking about Danavriddhi,
Okay.
which might be something that may be relevant. So let's get into this and see if you have the same question at the end of this as well.
Okay.
So I want to now talk about Danavriddhi. Danavriddhi is a program that DanaMojo is beginning. We are in the process of putting together our first cohort, which is to help organizations get started on retail fundraising and to have a roadmap to also scale that retail fundraising. So we have developed what we called a life approach. But before I talk about the life approach, we talked about why retail fundraising is important. We talked about, the fact that it was difficult to run operations in COVID, retail individual donors help. And now can we scale that operation? And that's where Danavriddhi comes in. So at Danavriddhi, we are adopting a learning methodology of active learning by doing, right? There's research which says that we as individuals only remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, and 50% of what we see and hear. And typical training programs, learning programs are focused on this part. They focus on the passive learning. They train you. What we are looking to do is focus on the doing part also, which is because people remember 70% of what they say and write. So we have outcomes for every phase of our project. 90% of what they do. So we will actually make you do things, right? That is our approach, is to run a program, which is an active learning program, by making you do certain things. So what is Danavriddhi and what is this program about? So as I mentioned, it's a cohort-based approach, which is employing principles of active learning by doing, as I showed you. It will comprise of training program for the entire cohort. There will be similar sessions like this, Zoom-based sessions, where we will teach concepts and we will teach theory. And then there will be one-on-one coaching. So you will be paired up with one of our team members from our end, who will tell you about how to go through every phase of this program and to develop the outcomes that are required in this program. You will be working one-on-one with one of our colleagues to develop the outcomes that this program asks of you, with the purpose of institutionalizing retail fundraising. Just like you are doing fundraising today in your organization for CSR, for institution on a regular everyday basis, we would like to see that regularly every day you are now doing retail fundraising, right? You are doing aspects related to retail fundraising on a day-to-day basis, not just doing it once a year with one campaign. And we will be running a fundraising campaign where we believe that we can deliver a 10 times return on the investment that you will be making as part of this program. So what is this 4-phase approach? Like I mentioned at the beginning, we're talking about a life approach. List. First phase is list, where we will help you list your donors and your potential donors. In our experience, we have found most organizations have a list of donors, but they don't, even if they have a list, it's a list of donors. Many of them don't even have a list properly. And but they definitely do not have a list of potential donors. So we will, framework your organization into buckets. 6 buckets I already showed in the previous slide where you could probably scale, but we will framework your organization into buckets and help you reach out and list out potential donors. In the second phase, which is inspire, our goal is to help you craft your story and inspire your donors with your story. As part of this, we will create 3 donation products and a campaign for which in phase 3, during the fundraise phase, we will fundraise for. We will fundraise for this campaign. We as in you as the organization will fundraise. We will be there to support you. You will fundraise for this campaign with the donors that you've created in phase 1. And as phase 4 of the project, you will develop an engagement plan, a communication calendar for ongoing regular engagement with these donors, apart from sending them an update about this about the fundraising program that you've done. So through this process of life, list, inspire, fundraise, engage, we hope that you will institutionalize retail fundraising within your organizations. Getting a little bit more deeper into what this, like I said, every segment will have training, will have one-to-one coaching. So within the first segment, we will talk a lot more about funding sources. We'll talk about online individual giving. We'll talk about crowdfunding. We'll talk about, where crowdfunding should be used, where it should not be used. And we will help you to build your donor list. We will help you to put your potential donor list, which is the outcome of this first phase. In the second phase, which is inspire, we will talk about telling your story. We will do a session on how you can tell your story. We will help you create what we call as high quality donation products. These are asks that you are making. For example, educate a girl child for a year or sponsor a wheelchair. We will help you to create asks for the retail donor very specifically. Second, we will help you to identify a campaign and to build out your campaign for which you want to raise money, and help you to set up your systems. So if you don't have an email marketing platform, we will help you to set that up. We will provide you, we will tell you what to do, what to select, and we will help you to set that up. The outcome of this is 3 clear asks, 3 clear donation products, and 1 campaign for which in the next phase, you will raise money for. Now, this is in some sense, I would say the most simple phase. You're raising money, that's it. But we are going to support you with helping you think through how you can do this in a very clear-cut, strategic manner, while keeping track of your donations, while keeping track of your outreach, and overall provide whatever support that you require. We will also be sending out templates that you can use with modification to send out to your donors. We will help you craft some of these templates out. And remember, we'll be working one-on-one with each one of y'all on this, right? And our goal is that you can raise a minimum of 4 lakh rupees through this fundraise campaign, a minimum. And the last phase being the engage phase, where the goal is that this engage phase is to nurture and retain your donors. So we'll talk about communication calendars. We will talk about donor engagement, and we will help you with drafting this out as per the strengths of your organization. The idea of 1:1 coaching is to leverage your strengths, is to leverage what you as an organization have already done and to strengthen it, which is why we believe in this coaching model a lot more. And we'll have a lot more coaching. Training will be one-off, will be much lesser, in fact. Right? And the outcome of this phase is an engagement plan and a communications calendar. So at the end of this 4 phases, you will have a list of donors, potential donors that you can keep reaching out to. You will have a story that you want to tell with donation products and campaign, example of a campaign that you've built out. You would have actually raised some money, and you would have an engagement plan with which to then reach out to your donors. This program is a 16-week program characterized as 4 weeks for each phase of the program. During this time period, your team will roughly give about 8 to 12 hours per week, or about 1 to 1.5 days per week, working on the outcomes that are required of this program. The outcomes that we discussed, to make those happen, you'll spend about 1 to 1.5 days. During the fundraise phase, this will peak. It will be probably closer to 2 to 3 days that you will spend on this program. So let me go back to this and say that what are we asking for you from this program? So every organization, so this is an organizational training program, not a personnel or individual training program. So every organization will have a team lead who will be responsible for the outcome of each phase of this program. There will be a team member who will attend all the training and the coaching sessions that will be part of this program, right? We will fundamentally coordinate with this team member. Our person will coordinate with this one person, and all meetings will be fixed up based on mutual availability, right? At the same time, we do not restrict the number of people that can join the program apart from these 2 people. These 2 are key. Apart from that, you can have any number of people joining in to this program. But for sake of logistics and coordination, we will primarily interact with the team member, and we would like meetings to be scheduled based on availability of the team member and the coach at our end. Right? So this is what we would have. Most importantly, I would like to stress on this point that we are here to help you. We are here to assist you. We are not here to do the work for you. The work will yet have to be done by you. We will guide you and we will teach you on how to do it, so that this is something that gets ingrained within your organization and is something that you can keep doing every day, every week, every month after that. So what is different about this program? Most programs are more training programs, training individuals. We have designed our program around building organizational capacity. This is an organizational building program. It is not a individual training program. It is a program where we are building this capacity for your organization. You're having clear outputs at the end of this program, which can help you to institutionalize retail fundraising by calendarizing it into your day-to-day activities. It is not just about giving more training to people. It is more than that. Yes, you are getting training. Yes, you are learning how to do it, but you're also getting outcome which you can actually use on a day-to-day basis. You will also have a email marketing setup done in case you didn't have that, right? That will also be a project outcome that will be there. And there is practical work that we are doing. We are creating a donor list. We are doing fundraising, right? You're going to have coaching that helps you put processes and systems in place for you to manage your your donors, for you to manage your entire process. And the idea is that we are able to deliver a 10x return on your investment. So this is not just theoretical classroom training. This is practical work that you will be doing with the assistance of our team. So we have a two-phase process in this, there is a first phase, which is the application process, where you will fill in the application form. We will screen these applications. We will do a screening call with your team, and certain selected applications will move to the next phase, which is the selection process, which comprises an interview. We will schedule an interview with you and we will announce a cohort. The last date for receiving applications is 21st July. We have already done a couple of webinars before this with different teams. And so we've already started receiving applications. We're already screening these applications. We're going to start interview rounds next week. And we have a limited cohort size. So the earlier you apply, the better are your chances of being part of this cohort, because once we reach our cohort batch size, we will stop entertaining applications for the first batch of this cohort. Right? So what will this cost you? The cost of this program is 80,000 rupees plus GST. However, you will be paying only 40,000 rupees, as 50% of this cost of this program has been kindly subsidized by A.T. Chandra Foundation and the Rohini Nilekani Philanthropies. They have subsidized this 50%, so you will be paying 40,000. And as part of this subscription, you will also get a 1-year subscription to the DanaMojo Advantage Plan one-time platform. If you are not on DanaMojo, you will get this. If you are already with DanaMojo, you will get the equivalent amount in credits, which you can use over the next 1 year, which you can use to either get onto newer platforms, or you can use it towards your renewal fee waiver. So either ways, you benefit, but this is what you will get. So what are our credentials? Why are we best placed to do this? We have done training for more than 5,000 NGO personnel through webinars like this. We've done offline workshops across multiple cities. We've done online webinars. We have an entire series of 17 webinars, which is there on YouTube, which we call the Fundraising Friday webinars. We've done webinars with other partners as well. We've onboarded more than 1,100 NGOs onto our platform. As DanaMojo itself, we have run 6 matching challenges. So this is the fundraising piece that you'll be doing, where more than 150 organizations have raised 2.5 crores from over 3,000 donors, and we have given out 75 lakhs in matching funds. The fundraise part will also have matching funds, which is also supported by A.T. Chandra Foundation and Rohini Nilekani Philanthropies. And more details of that will become once we commence the program. As I have also been the pioneer of matching challenges in India, back at Give India is when I started this 14 years ago. We ran 10 matching challenges, raised 5 crores in matching donations, and NGOs raised 25 crores in donations. Right. So this is what, just to give a highlight of our credential, this is small overview. You've already heard about me. I'll just also like to introduce my colleague Gopi, who's there on the call and introduce me. She's been someone who's been in the sector now for over 15 years. She's worked in various capacities from NGO diligence to communications and now on the fundraising side of things. She's also been pivotal in helping us run our matching challenge as well in the past. So along with this, we will have other campaign associates as well who will be working with you on this in this initiative. So any questions on this, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we will send across an email to all of you where we'll provide the link for this application form. And please remember, 21st of July, Friday, 2 weeks from now is the last date for the application. So please make your decisions fast, because we do have a lot of applications coming in and we will look at this on a first come, first serve basis. Okay. Yes, Joel, you can ask a question?
Yes. Hi, Dhaval. Thanks for taking us through this program very comprehensively. It really, looks very exciting. One thing I wanted to know, that through your experience in sort of working with nonprofits earlier and sort of guiding them through these pathways, do you have any resources in terms of their learnings that you have consolidated somewhere? Would love to sort of go through that as well.
Good point, Doyle. I don't think we have largely done training sessions so far. We have not engaged with organizations over a longish period of time. We do have, I think there are some great case studies on fundraising within with the India Development Review. You may be aware of IDR.
Yeah.
So I would urge you to look at that. They've had some great case studies which they have highlighted. We have more specific case studies around matching donations and so on.
Sure. If there's anything of this sort that, post call can be shared with the attendees, if you could share with me, that would be lovely. Or even if you all would like to drop any links to the case studies you all have, it would just help us understand this better.
Sure. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, I think there are no more questions with respect to this program. So thank you everyone for being a part of this. If I can just, I have one last poll that I'd like to get is to just judge some interest regarding this program. So if you can just answer this one last poll, and that would be great. So in the meanwhile, yeah, if any questions, we can have that while people fill out the poll. Or any comments across both the sessions that we've had, any comments, any sharing of experiences that anyone wants to do, we could do that. I think it's been a long session. So before more people leave, if we can just have one screenshot and we can all be nice, smiley and put on our videos, that would be great as well.
Off your screen share. That's better.
So guys, if we can, oh, lovely. Fantastic to see so many screen shares, and I think I have multiple screens. So just give me a moment, and if we all can get into a V and Have a nice cheesy smile. Yeah. Just give me 1 second. I have. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you everyone for being part of this. You guys were a wonderful audience. It was lovely to see all the interactions. Thank you and hope to see you at Dhanavriddhi. Have a lovely Friday.